Picture this. The year is 2025, but the flag flying over the White House is the Union Jack. There is no President of the United States. Instead, there's a Viceroy, appointed by the King of England. There are no United States of America, just a collection of self-governing provinces loyal to the British Crown. The American Revolution is the single most important political event of the modern era. Its success defined our ideas of liberty, democracy, and individual rights. But what if the Continental Army had been defeated? What if George Washington had been captured and tried for treason? The entire trajectory of the past 2 centuries, from the Civil War to the World Wars, would be unrecognizable. Welcome to the timeline where the American experiment in self-governance never took root. In our reality, the American Revolution succeeded due to a convergence of factors: Washington's brilliant tactical retreats, the logistical overextension of the British military, and, crucially, the intervention of France in 1778. The victory at Yorktown cemented the birth of the Republic. The goal of the founders was simple but radical: establish a government based on popular sovereignty, rule by the people, rather than hereditary rule. In our alternate timeline, we assume the British successfully neutralized the French threat early on, perhaps by sinking a key French fleet or convincing King Louis XVI to stay neutral through a new treaty. Without that vital French assistance, the money, the supplies, and the naval power, the Continental Army is unable to win the necessary victories. George Washington is eventually forced to surrender. The rebellion is crushed by the year 1780, and the 13 colonies are swiftly brought back under the direct control of the British Crown. The first, most immediate contrast is the permanent fracture of North America. The concept of the United States never exists. Instead, the Crown institutes a highly decentralized administrative structure. North America is managed as several large, distinct British provinces: New England, the Middle Colonies, and the Southern Colonies, all ruled by a governor-general appointed from London. The capital of this vast territory would likely be a fortified New York or Philadelphia, acting as the centralized hub of imperial power. The colonies, now called provinces, would retain their local assemblies, but the ultimate power would always rest with the king and the parliament in London. The long-term impact on the map is also profound. Without a unified American power pushing relentlessly westward, the vast territories of the Louisiana Purchase and the Spanish West would remain under European control for far longer. This would slow European settlement and for a time preserve Native American sovereignty in the center of the continent for decades. Globally, the British Empire would be virtually unchallenged. Economically, this world remains defined by mercantilism. The provinces of British North America exist for one primary reason: to enrich the Crown. They are forced to trade only with Britain, buying finished goods from London and selling raw materials like lumber, tobacco, and cotton back to the mother country at fixed low prices. This completely eliminates the free market capitalism and rapid industrialization that defined the real 19th century United States. Innovation is stifled because colonial merchants lack the capital and the freedom to compete on a global scale. The standard of living is lower than what the US enjoyed, resembling more the wealthy, class-conscious society of Victorian England. Boston and Philadelphia remain important trading ports, but they never grow into the massive industrial centers they became in our reality. Now the failure of the Revolution has a strange and powerful effect on the issue of slavery. In our timeline, the political power of the Southern states was strong enough to protect slavery all the way until the Civil War. In this alternate reality, the British Parliament, which was generally anti-slavery, abolished the practice throughout its entire empire in 1833. This means the Southern colonies, Virginia, Georgia, and the Carolinas, would be forced to abolish slavery without a civil war, decades earlier than 1865. This eliminates the central bloody trauma of the American Civil War, but it doesn't eliminate racism. The transition would be traumatic, marked by a severe economic depression in the South, but the cost in human lives would be drastically reduced. The Civil War simply never happens. The 20th century in this timeline looks vastly different. There is no independent United States to enter World War I or World War II as a decisive late-game power. Britain, weakened by the constant cost of controlling its massive global empire, enters the wars alone, or potentially loses its global standing much earlier to rivals like Germany or Russia. North America, still tied to Britain, enters the wars as part of the empire, but perhaps reluctantly. The massive injection of American industrial power that tipped the scales in both world wars in our timeline is either delayed or never happens at all, leading to a much longer, more devastating global conflict. The political system remains stagnant. The pursuit of hereditary privilege replaces meritocracy. The population is loyal to the crown, but it lacks the fierce, innovative, and individualistic spirit that defined the American character in our world. Imagine living in a world where the documents we consider sacred, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, are just forgotten pieces of propaganda, stored away in some dusty imperial archive. The most profound loss here is the ideal of the Republic itself. The American character, defined by its independence, its self-reliance, and its healthy distrust of authority, never develops. Instead, citizens possess a stronger sense of order, class hierarchy, and duty to the crown. Would you trade the chaotic freedom of the United States, the political feuding, the Civil War, the violent industrialization, for a life of stable, orderly, and relatively peaceful subjugation to the crown? A world without a civil war sounds appealing, but it comes at the cost of the freedom to choose your own destiny. This scenario really forces us to look at the immense value of a simple idea, self-governance. So I have a question for you. If the failure of the American Revolution meant no civil war and an earlier abolition of slavery by the British in 1833, would the end justify the means? Was remaining a British subject worth avoiding the carnage of 1861 to 1865? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The failure of the American Revolution would have ensured the continued dominance of the British Empire, transforming the modern world into an orderly but perhaps stifling place. The simple act of signing a treaty in 1783 brought us not just independence, but a century of chaos and the freedom to define ourselves. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the British North American timeline, make sure to subscribe. Next time, we're going to tackle a political thought experiment that terrifies historians. What if America became a monarchy? You won't want to miss that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next timeline.